Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you all so much for joining today's call. This call is the second in our four-part series designed to discuss our 2021 policy priorities with the Prosperity Now community. And we're also going to talk about what these policies would mean for your community, and then more importantly, hear from you all on what you're working on at the at the federal, state, or municipal level, and talk about what we can do to move these policies forward. As you can see, today's webinar or today's call will focus on our 2021 financial security priorities. I know that many of you joined us last week for our tax call, so this is just the second part in this series. Wendy, I see your background there at the beach, and I am so jealous right now. I would love to be there at this very moment. Like I mentioned on the previous slide, today we'll focus on our financial security priorities. If you missed last week's call where we focused on our tax priorities, we're going to drop a link to that call in the chat so that you all can go back and watch that and see what our tax priorities are. And as you can see, some of the next calls here that are upcoming as well. So before we get started, I do want to go over a few housekeeping points for you all. The call is being recorded just like last week's and will be available online through the same link that the tax campaign call is available. So just follow that same link and you'll have a link to the recording. Feel free to share that out to your networks and anyone that you think might be interested in our policy priorities. All attendees are being muted to ensure sound quality, but as mentioned, we do want these calls to feel as interactive as possible. We want to hear from you on your thoughts on our policy priorities, as well as what you all are working on. So don't hesitate to unmute yourselves, raise your hand, type in the chat box. We just want this to be a two-way conversation as much as possible. So although you're muted, chime in as you see fit, and let's really make this a conversation this afternoon. Like I mentioned, ask questions, share your thoughts anytime. I screenshot here so that you all can see where the raise my hand, where you unmute yourselves, and so on. And then lastly, if you're not already following Prosperity Now on Twitter, please do so. Our Twitter handle is there at Prosperity Now. Follow along, retweet. We share a lot of policy as well as programmatic information on our Twitter page. And we're also going to be sharing a lot of resources this afternoon on the call. So just check out the chat box. Those resources will pop up as we're speaking throughout today's call. Today's speaker, you all see myself there, as well as through my webcam here. And then Joanna Ain, who is our Associate Director for Policy. Joanna handles both our tax and financial security portfolio. So if you were with us last week, you heard from Joanna and you're hearing from her again this week. I'm going to turn it over to her in just a moment here. And then just today's agenda, the welcome, which I'm doing now. I'll turn it over to Joanna in just a second to give a little background on sort of the state of financial security in our country right now. But then she'll also go into our federal priorities for 2021. After that, we want to have an open discussion, Q&A with you all to get your thoughts, get your questions, concerns, and hear from you. And then we'll talk next steps and how to get involved at the tail end of the call. So that's what we've got for you today. And so without further ado, I will turn it over to Joanna to kick us off.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Vanna. Hi, everyone. Great to see so many faces / little initials in the screen down there. Again, as Vanna said, this is a conversation. A lot of these, so I'm going to talk about some of the background behind them, which a lot of this background we know you already know. But the background behind them and the thinking behind these policies, as well as the policies themselves. Now, I do want to state these, since it's very early in the 117th Congress, most of these, with the exception of one that I'll talk briefly about at the end, have not been reintroduced or introduced yet. So we really welcome if you all have questions about the legislation, if you all think, oh, well, what about X, Y, and Z to be added or changed? We really welcome that. We have conversations with staffers around these policies quite often, certainly before they're reintroduced or introduced. So if there are concerns, we definitely want to hear about them and want to think through that with you and think through the staffer. So really don't feel like we're just giving you this information and that's it, hands off. This is really a point of engagement, especially so early in the 117th Congress, because this legislation is being created as we speak. What was introduced in the 116th Congress, the last Congress, doesn't mean it needs to be introduced exactly the same. So just bringing that up as just a point of reflection. So again, I am Joanna Ain, and we're going to go through some financial security policies. Now, we started, we have 4 campaigns, as you may know: tax campaign, consumer protection campaign, home ownership campaign, and our financial security campaign. This started out being a safety net program campaign, and then we widened it up because we realized that savings is so core a part of financial security and part of a family's ability to get ahead. We've always known that, and we kind of have we've articulated it with updating the name of that campaign. So as you all have heard the statistic over and over again, nearly 4 in 10 households are liquid asset poor. So what does that mean? It means that families, almost 4 out of 10 households don't have enough liquid savings to cover a poverty level income for 3 months in event of emergency. We're not talking 3 months of kind of where their lifestyle is at. We're talking about 3 months at a poverty level. So folks just don't have this money saved. And I know this is not going to surprise you all who are so ingrained in the work we do and so conscious of it, but always want to raise this up as a point. So why is savings so important? Families need savings to get ahead in life, whether that's saving for education, saving for emergencies, or what have you. So what gets in, so there are a lot of things, obviously, and we can go into the details at some other point in time. There are a lot of things that get in the way of savings. So we're going to talk about one of a policy that hopefully can rectify that in 1 second. But just to expand upon this point, Vanna, yes, perfect. Liquid asset poverty rates by race. So right, we said nearly 4 in 10 households are liquid asset poor. We see this drastically go up if you are a Black household, a Latino household, a household with disability. Black and Latino households almost at 60%, and then households with disability above 60%. So this is just really startling, and really why we need policies that rectify this situation. So one of, as I was saying, right, so there are a number of reasons that this is the case, right? And one is that families, frankly, a lot of families are afraid to save. They are worried about losing their public benefits. They are afraid to save for retirement, college, what have emergencies even, because they are worried that they're going to save a certain amount. And depending on the state that they're in, these public benefits, they can get cut off of their public benefits. So as you see from the slide, savings penalties, we also call this, we go back and forth, savings penalties / asset limits, but same thing. They force a family to choose between their future needs, right, or their future, right, their education, home ownership, retirement, paying for emergencies, paying for your car breaking down, paying when someone in your household gets sick and is no longer able to get a paycheck for a few months. So saving for their future and then saving for their current needs, right? Through a lot of our families they use SNAP, they use TANF, they use LIHEAP. So a single mom, she might save, if she saves $2,000 for her child's college education in a CSA, then she loses her job and her family needs access to food, to heat, to other basic supports. She now has a choice, and it's a pretty, I'm not going to curse on this, but it's a pretty terrible choice, right? She can spend down the CSA and receive public benefits such as SNAP, LIHEAP, and TANF, or she can keep the CSA and be unable to access benefits that she and her family needs to survive. So this is a pretty terrible choice. Again, this is dependent on what state you live in. Now, that's really important because, as you know, it's the 21st century, right? People move around all the time. And when something isn't consistent in each state, and it varies by states, it varies where you move, people just don't know the rules for their state, it's very confusing, and it's basically going to freak people out, and people are going to just be like, I'm not gonna save in these amounts, because their public benefits are so critical, as you all know, to living their lives. So that's part of the problem. So we're advocating for a national bill that will remove, wow, that was good, Vanna, remove asset limits. So remove these barriers to saving and eliminate those asset limits on public benefits programs or public assistance program. So this is a bill, again, it was introduced in the 116th Congress by Senators Brown and Coons were the champions. And it eliminates asset limits on TANF, SNAP, and LIHEAP. So just gets rid of them, and then it raises the limits on SSI from 2,000 to 10,000. So really increases on that end for an individual, and from 3,000 to 20,000, sorry, for a couple. And then that's indexed to inflation. So really making a tremendous change. And we know, thank you guys. Thanks Holden and Vanna for keeping up with me in the chat. This is perfect. As you guys can see, we're a well-oiled machine here at the Prosperity Now policy team. So really, really great bill. People keep always ask, so what are the chances of this moving? What are the, how are we going to get success with this? This bill, this is a pretty common sense bill, as you guys know. I mean, this is, I would say, asset limits is the policy concern that we hear. I would say we hear most from our networks. This is something that directs families so critically. So it would be great to push this in a bigger vehicle. It's not right now in the American Rescue Plan, the plan that President Biden just came out with. Perhaps we can see if it's going to be in plans moving forward. But really serious legislation and just, common sense. Like, why should someone choose between the future and their needs now? It just doesn't make sense. So I'm very excited about this one, as I am about all of them, but very excited about this one. And I am working with Holden Weissman, who is also on the call. Thank you, Holden, to push this through, to get this reintroduced, and would love to hear your thoughts, comments, or feedback on this if you have any. So we talked a little bit about emergency savings. We talked a little about illiquid asset poverty. Also, of course, the racial wealth gap here, Prosperity Now. This is really critical to our work. What else is there to say? But when you look at this graphic, the median net worth is so scarily different, whether you are a white household, a black household. That gap is so huge. So how to narrow that gap when thinking, especially in long-term savings. So we're going to talk about that. So one other big piece of legislation was introduced in the 116th Congress, where again we're in the 117th now. So this is up for, I guess we could say, up for renewal. And we're hoping that this is going to be reintroduced soon, is the Saving for the Future Act, championed by Senator Coons. So this has two parts to it. It both helps families save for retirement, but it also helps them save for emergencies at the same time. So all employees, I'm going to take you through this graphic because I know there's a lot of words and it's very small on everyone's screen. All employees start receiving a retirement benefit from their employer starting at 50 cents for every hour worked. For those of you who are good at math, you'll find that that's starting at about $1,000 a year. So that's really exciting. This is just to mark, this isn't for all employers, this is just for employers who have 100 employees or more, just so you know, then each employee is automatically enrolled at a starting contribution of 4% of their earnings towards retirement. It is a opt-out program, so folks can opt out, but the idea is that they are automatically enrolled. So there's that baseline there. And of course, we know that when folks are automatically enrolled for these kinds of programs, the enrollment can go, when they're not automatically enrolled, it's about, participation is about at like 40%. And then when they're automatically enrolled, it goes up to 90%. So this is a really exciting thing to have automatic enrollment integrated into a retirement bill. So 4% of their earnings, again, they can opt out of this, but starting baseline 4% of their earnings, and then an opt-in portion, so something optional, would be that the first $2,500 in savings could go towards an emergency savings account. So really just a neat idea and a neat way to both push employers to give to retirement for all their employees, facilitate retirement savings and facilitate that in terms of that automatic enrollment piece for the participants, and then also have a piece around emergency savings so that folks can build up their emergency savings to shrink that liquid asset poverty piece that we talked about before. So a lot of exciting components to this particular bill. So again, we're looking for this to be reintroduced. Would love your feedback. And then, of course, we're thinking about match savings. We had our beloved AFI program, which was unfortunately defunded in 2017. And so we're thinking through what else would make a good match savings program. What are some of the points of contention, some of the barriers in that past Assets for Independence program, that past AFI program. So we've been talking about this promise accounts proposal, and we are hoping that there has been no introduction of this yet, but very hopeful that it will be introduced in the 117th Congress. And folks on the chat, if you can't see it, I can slide in the proposal link when I'm done speaking. So thanks so much for your patience on that. So the proposed promise accounts proposal, standardized accounts throughout one program. Vanna, I'm getting just feedback that I have bad. I just want to make sure you can hear me.
I can hear you okay.
Okay, just checking, just making sure. Anyway, so proposed promise accounts proposal, standardized accounts created through one platform, more types of purchases eligible for the program. Previously, only education, small business, and oh wow, education, small business, and sorry, home ownership. How could I forget home ownership? Were eligible. So thinking a little bit more broadly, we know there's a lot of needs, for instance, for cars for people to get to work, and people need to save towards cars for vehicles. So things like that. So thinking a little bit more broadly about the purchases eligible, thinking how to allow more families to be eligible to participate, but still leaving that strong role for local organizations. We know a lot of you all were very invested in AFI and match savings programs. So really continuing that strong role for local organizations. A little bit how this would work. Vanna, if you can push the slide forward, thank you so much, right? So we have, what would this experience look like? A local organization. So one of y'all would recruit Jane into your promise accounts program. She'd enroll in the program, she'd open up an account, she'd pick a savings goal, develop a savings plan with the help of the local organization, of course. Then she'd save $1,000 for at least 6 months for a car, and then she'd receive $2,000 as a 2-to-1 match for her savings. So that's the kind of thing we're talking about with this kind of new, this sequel to the AFI program. Thanks, Vanna. So again, we're looking forward to an introduction of these three bills in the House and the Senate, whether it's introduction or reintroduction. And our goal, once they're introduced, will be to drum up as many co-sponsors as possible in both chambers and build momentum for passage in the 117th Congress. So that is always our goal. But I just wanted to briefly, I talked about this bill on the last call, and I just briefly wanted to come back to it. Yes, thank you, Vanna. The American Opportunities Accounts Act, in case you didn't see it, and we'll put more, I'm just writing that down to put more in the chat. This was actually introduced, I was going to say last week, 2 weeks ago, reintroduced by Senator Booker, Representative Presley. They did a great Instagram live on it. Check it out if you haven't seen it. And this bill, as I said 2 weeks ago, this would seed someone's account. So every child born in the United States, they'd be seeded with $1,000. And then the lowest income children would get $2,000 a year until the age of 18. So that would leave them at the age of 18 with about $45,000 once you add an interest. So this is, again, the infamous baby bonds bill. We're really excited that it's been reintroduced so early in Congress. And we will put a link to how to advocate for that and get more co-sponsors on that. I'm sure Senator Booker and Representative Presley will really appreciate that. So again, happy to take questions on that. I'll put in more information. And I'm going to turn it back to Vanna.
Thank you, Joanna. I saw a lot of conversation happening in the chat, which I appreciate. And that was, like I said, one of the goals of the call today is to go through our policy priorities, number one, but most importantly, to hear from you all. So I wanted to pose these 4 discussion questions to you all, and then also just answer any questions that you all have about the bills that we've presented to you all. But number one, just think about these 4 questions. Do any of these policies align with your own priorities that you're working on at the federal, state, or local level? And Luke, I saw that you mentioned your IDA work in Oregon. Luke, if you're comfortable, I'd love for you to unmute yourself in a moment just to talk about what's happening with your quest for IDA funding in Oregon. I know that we've worked with you all out there to put together some campaigns on it. Second question being, what financial security related policies are you prioritizing in your state? If there are things outside of the scope of what we mentioned here today, we'd love to hear about them. 3, probably most importantly for me, what myself and Joanna and our team, what resources or supports do you need from Prosperity Now for your own financial security related advocacy? Any messaging resources that we can provide, our campaign, our advocacy center, just let us know. And then how would you like to continue engaging with us on financial security related advocacy? Would more calls like this, maybe quarterly, be helpful as these bills start to move, letting you all know, what's happening in Congress, what additional supports are needed? We're just trying to gauge what's most helpful for people. If these calls are, email updates through listservs or through our online tracker, which I'll show you in a moment. And Luke, I saw that you've appeared on camera. I don't know if you were ready to speak up or what, but I'll turn it over to you if you want to share a little bit more about your IDA work.
Sure. Luke Bonham here from Neighborhood Partnerships. We manage the Oregon IDA that's state funded. And so I think the big difference is we are sort of in a trajectory going away from what AFI required and dreaming about what could be, without those AFI requirements, because we are state funded. So we did recently get emergency savings approved as an asset goal. In addition to previously, a couple years ago, we added some other asset goals that I listed in the chat. But also we're trying to increase the match rate so that somebody with a lower income doesn't have to save as much to reach their goal, as well as accelerate the timeline, because a lot of our home purchase savers, the time it takes just required by the program, once they're ready to purchase a home, the market has outpaced what they're able to purchase. So we're definitely thinking about what can we do differently from what AFI had originally set. Also getting away from custodial accounts, really helping somebody manage an account that they're independently managing as part of the IDA. rather than requiring a custodial. So we'd love to engage with people who are also thinking about how to change what AFI required previously into what might actually conform to the needs of our savers.
Great, thank you for that, Luke. And are you all currently engaging with the legislature right now?
In Oregon, yes, we are.
Great, great, thank you. Any other responses to the discussion questions? Again, we just want to hear from you all about what you're working on or what we can do to assist your advocacy efforts as it relates to financial security priorities. So I will sort of wait and see if I get any hands raised or any chatter in the chat box. And thank you, Rada, for answering the question about how you all would like to continue engaging. I saw you said email updates and online trackers, so thanks for that. And if you all do want to speak up, I can't see everyone. If you're even if your cameras are on, I can't see you. So just go ahead and feel free to unmute yourselves.
Tamara, would you like to tell us what you are thinking about doing in New Jersey around IDAs?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So I, ever since I got into this work, was trying to get an IDA program started on the local level in the city of Newark. I am part of the Newark Asset Building Coalition, and when I brought it up, I was kind of not laughed at, but everybody was like, "Oh, that's kind of lofty. You know, we can't replace this whole entire government program." But so just hearing Luke talk about the program that they were able to create in Oregon and how his organization is facilitating it, kind of gives me hope, because that is something I'm still pushing for, an IDA program that has lower barriers, more usage for the funds, appropriate usage for the funds, and I am looking for models all around the U.S. that I can then present to say, okay, this is how they're doing it here. Maybe this is something that we can emulate. I work for a new community corporation in Newark, New Jersey. I just saw someone ask that, and yeah, I'm still rooting for it. So if anybody has any information, oh, thank you, Luke. I saw that. If anybody has any information that I could then share, pass along, and disseminate, that would be great. Thank you guys for the opportunity to speak.
Hi, Tamara. Can I, this is Carmela from the Houston Area Urban League. Hi, all of the wonderful folks on Prosperity Now. I just adore you all to life. I really do. But I wanted to chime in on the match savings. So I've been investigating this for a while. There are some nonprofits within the Texas region who are, they do have their own vehicles via nonprofit, via education, housing. But my question is, if someone's not buying a house and someone, you know, won't go the educational route, then what? Because and that's basically the that's basically the space that I'm attempting to fill. I know that community services in DC on Vermont Avenue, they used to have a match savings program, or it was, yeah. And so I think it was funded through General Services Administration, if I'm not mistaken. And so that particular match savings program, I was looking to see what vehicle it was through, but I think it was a grant. And I think that it wasn't exhausted, but they just cut the program, and I couldn't figure out why. I was trying to take a deeper dive and do some research on it. But that's the space I'm looking for. And so now I'm going to private entities to try to summon, you know, I've already written a proposal for it, and I'm just trying to push it now because of the space that we're in with this whole pandemic thing. And so I really, you know, want to be able to offer this, because we do have, it's a 7.2 or 7.3% unemployment rate now. And it's trailing the national average, of course, but it's just imperative that we get something moving. And so I'm looking at what Prosperity Now just said in terms of vehicles. So now it's really got me churning in terms of what else, how I can best scope it out. So any suggestions would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmela and Tamara. I know that Luke mentioned they had gotten emergency savings approved as an asset goal. Is that along the lines of what you're thinking, Carmela? Like that sort of change?
Yes. Yeah, yep, absolutely.
Right.
Yep.
And I'm gonna see if Luke has any thoughts on the state level of how they were able to accomplish that. But I'm gonna also turn to my colleagues at Prosperity Now to see if there are thoughts there as well.
Yeah, this is Luke. I can chime in.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
We really used the state COVID response as the leverage to get emergency savings, which was a goal we had for a long time. But we really just took advantage of the situation that people are finding themselves in to get this added as an IDA. I think what helps us is we have sort of the stable funding stream from the state level through a tax credit. So it was just an addition to the statute, really in a COVID response, but in a way that allows us to do it long-term now. So it was really just, I think, jumping on the opportunity to do it now because it is on the top of people's minds. How are families getting through this time? How are they responding to emergency needs? So I think that from our process, that's how we got it through, is taking advantage of the circumstance currently at the legislative level.
Gilda, if you are on the call, it would be great to hear about what Maine is thinking around this too, because I think Maine is trying to get funding from HHS. So love to hear your perspective as well.
And then after Gilda, I think Mimi has her hand raised as well. So want to make sure.
Great. Well, our State Department of Health and Human Services actually has been funding us for several years now, I think using TANF funding, but I would have to, I'm not directly involved, so I'd have to check on that. And we were able to expand our categories to include emergency savings and car purchase and repair. Also, our State Department of Housing has provided match money for home ownership and repair. And then a private foundation put up some funds to help with business startup and expansion. The one challenge with our HHS funding is it is limited to families, low-income families that have a dependent child in the family. So that does limit the population we would like to serve, and are continually looking for other funding support. I was curious to hear that Oregon still has a tax credit. We used to have a tax credit, and during the last recession that was removed. So it reminds me that we should work on that again.
Great, thank you, Gilda. And Marquita, I just want to acknowledge your comment here, also echoing previous comments about, unrestricted uses for funding and the frustration around the uses of AFI and then being too narrow. I know that was, I think, something that was heavily discussed when thinking about promise accounts. And I don't know if Joanna, you want to chime in more here on that, but I just wanted to acknowledge that comment and say, yes, that was taken into consideration as we were thinking through sort of what AFI 2.0 or what other versions of that program could look like.
Yeah, Marquita, I completely agree. Completely agree. I think it's always in terms of like the policy perspective and the DC perspective and all those terrible things. I do think, it's always tricky because you want something that will pass and you want something that you feel good about, and that's the right thing to do. And a lot of times those are the same things. So yes, I think absolutely. Unrestricted uses, I get it, and you're absolutely right. And I think creating language that has wider buckets of things that families can use this funding for is kind of a step in that direction. It is not a perfect solution, but in hopes of getting the passage and creating something that's potentially bipartisan, that's where we landed there. But thank you. I so appreciate the comment.
And Marquita, you're muted. I'm not sure if you're asking Joanna another question. Just unmute yourself.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Joanna and Vanna, I appreciate that. And I definitely understand the tension between trying to get the thing that you want to get, but also having it kind of pass muster and be subject to bipartisan review. I do want to point you to a program, a long-term savings program, asset building program within HUD that actually does allow for an unrestricted account, and that's family self-sufficiency. Although oftentimes housing authorities and the housing providers that house these accounts and operate and manage the funds will push people towards home ownership, right? Or, you know, it's a work-related workforce development, income increasing program, and then oftentimes they'll tout home ownership as a primary goal. When you actually get into it and uncover the regulations, once folks kind of meet the requirements, the funds that they receive are completely unrestricted. So that's a good thing, and just in terms of acknowledging that there's a federal precedent for this kind of work. And yeah, you have to set goals in the first place, but once the check is cut and in the hands of the family, they're not required to use it for whatever goals they establish. So I appreciate that savings is a nice goal, because that's very general, allows people to do things like pay down debt, which helps increase credit, and, you know, and creates kind of larger goals that are outside these very narrow predefined goals.
No, that's an awesome point, and you know, we love the FSS program. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up. And let's do some more thinking about that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mimi, I saw that your hand is still raised. I don't know if you still had a comment or a question, but feel free to unmute yourself.
Yeah, no, hi everybody. I still did have a comment. This is just some of the work that we're doing in Massachusetts. There's I don't know if the Midas Collaborative is on the call. I'm not sure that they are, but I know that they're working on matched savings, and I'm not sure if it's federally with you guys, since Midas is the Prosperity Now partner in Massachusetts, or if it's on the state level. I'm not specifically working on matched savings. The kind of key policy issues that I'm working on is with the EITC Healthy Families Coalition, and so that's a collaborative of a whole host of statewide organizations housed out of Boston Medical Center, and there's a whole bunch of very, very cool organizations that have come together, and over the years we've been able to expand the state earned income credit now to 30%, and we continue to try to push that to 50%, but we've made it to 30% from 13% over about 5 years, which is pretty remarkable. But we have a bill this year that we're working on that Senator Eldridge has filed, who is one of the state senators in Massachusetts, who really is the champion of this work, called a guaranteed minimum income. And it's the bill is crafted through a strategy of using the EITC, and it provides, it's kind of like an omnibus bill. I mean, it includes 5 points, so that if you do all 5 of them, you really would make a significant impact in terms of poverty. So it's has a income floor of $2,400, It also includes increasing the state EIC to the 50% of the federal. It allows expanded phase out of the EIC at families for $75,000. It also expands eligibility, so it includes a lot of the folks who haven't been able to get the earned income credit, including ITIN holders. And then it also has a whole outreach component. So if we were able to pass that, we're now at the beginning of a legislative session in Massachusetts too, which is right, the 2-year sessions. So it was just filed. We're still in filing. So the filing deadline isn't until the 17th of February. And there's a bunch of other interesting asset building and credit building bills that are being filed. But this one by Eldridge is really quite, it would be really significant, right? I mean, it would really make a deep impact in terms of child poverty. So we'll be working on that.
Great, thank you, Mimi. And we had a conversation with Midas a few weeks ago, I believe, and I know that their priority was match savings at the state level, and they talked about Eldridge making that his chief priority. I don't know if the bill that we talked about back then is the one that you mentioned, but I know that they're doing match savings on the state level. So it's something that, you know, we are keeping an eye on, and I think we were sort of talking strategy around messaging and all of that, but we have been in contact with them. So thanks for mentioning that. Anyone else, feel free to speak up. That's the goal of these calls. Again, just to make connections, which I'm seeing in the chat box, and I love folks connecting offline. If you've heard anything, for folks who haven't spoken up, it's no problem. But if you've heard anything from someone speaking on the call and you think that, you know, they could be of assistance to your efforts in your state, just drop something in the chat and connect with people, exchange email addresses. That's the goal. We just want to connect people, see what you all are working on, and see how we can collectively meet all of our advocacy goals.
Economy Jackson, if you were still on the call, it'd be great to hear from you guys about the work that you did with securing private funders for your IDA program. I know Carmela had indicated that that might be an area that she would want to explore some more. So there might be others in this call that might also be interested in that.
Yes, I am trying to.
Hi, Economy.
Okay, wait a minute, do it right. Am I off? Yeah, okay. So yeah, so we had AFI, you know, years ago. You know, we found a lot of restrictions, especially within our home ownership, because, you know, if your income was that low, it was extremely hard to get an account. So extremely hard to purchase a home. And so that one just kind of fell away even after we were still using some of our own money. We continued with the micro enterprise and our education. And so we just started, so it's our United Way. We just started writing into our grants that we were writing with some of the banks we work with some of the other for-profit organizations we were working with, to include it as part of the work we were doing. So with the emergency savings, individuals, they had 6 months to save $500. We matched it with financial coaching. Everything was matched with financial coaching, as well as the financial literacy. And so it definitely was something that we found that our funders were very interested in. Last year was our last session, but even during COVID, we were doing micro enterprise, and we thought people weren't going to be able to continue saving. But everybody that was in our micro enterprise program, they were able to save, other than maybe 2 or 3, able to save the $1,000, and then we were able to match them with $3,000 for their business. And so they really, they wanted to continue to do it because they knew it would be beneficial for their business. And so, so it came at a really good time. And so we're still looking at, like I said, as we write grants to our banks, to our other local, we add that in, but it is with our financial coaching. So we're always including the financial coaching, the financial literacy, And it just gives people a way to have more accountability when they are donating money or giving money to people that are in need, that they know that the people that are getting the funds will also receive these additional resources as well. So hopefully that was helpful.
Yes, super helpful. Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else want to chime in?
Hi, Vanna. I would love to give a brief description of what we've been doing over at Save Our Life,
Sure.
which is a national nonprofit that helps low-income and moderate-income families build savings. And while we monitor legislation and keep track of any advocacy, we also have almost nearly 500,000 members with whom we give emergency savings. Last year, we gave out a COVID emergency boost to a lot of our members, and we do price-linked savings as well. We have a lot of messaging on our website that's useful to any organization, especially around tax time right now. If anyone has messaging questions about tax time and resources that are available and that sort of thing, especially those folks who haven't received stimulus funds yet. But we really find these calls really helpful, and I thank you for organizing them because it helps us keep on track of policy priorities.
Great, thank you for joining and for speaking up. All of the feedback so far has been super helpful. Rana, would you mind, and when you say messaging support, would that be helpful for other partners on the call, or is it more so directed towards your clients?
We both. I'll put a couple links in the chat.
That was going to be my next ask. Thank you. All right. Anyone else have any thoughts, questions, comments before we move on and talk next steps and what you all can do to get involved? All right, hearing nothing, I will move us along. Thank you all so much for the discussion, for the questions, for everyone speaking up and chiming in. That was really helpful. So moving along here, just want to show you all, as I mentioned earlier, one of the ways that we can keep you all updated. I didn't get a lot of feedback on how we can, I guess, keep you all updated as these bills are moving. But one of the ways certainly is our federal policy tracker. You can find it on our Prosperity Now website, which I believe we dropped the link to in the chat earlier. It's prosperitynow.org/take-action. But we update this, and you can just go and see the little federal policy tracker here. It's a really small box on here, but it's larger on our website. As these bills move from committee, as they're being voted on, the status will just automatically update. So you can just go on and check it out and see what the status of a bill is. You can pull up the full bill text, see who's sponsoring it, all of those good things. So just know that that resource is available to you all. And then as I mentioned to Raul earlier in the chat, I was so excited, and I always am when people mention, oh, I should call my legislator every month to advocate for this. That is music to my ears, because you can do that in our advocacy center, and I encourage you all to do it if you're not already registered in our advocacy center. I know that I mentioned this last week on our tax call, but it really is a one-stop shop for just your advocacy efforts: emailing, calling, tweeting, scheduling a meeting, signing a petition, all of that good stuff you can do in our advocacy center. I believe that most of you are members of it, but if you aren't, feel free to register today. It's absolutely free for you all. I know that the IDA work that Luke and his team over at Neighborhood Partnerships, they utilized our advocacy center for their big advocacy push to get IDA funding. So great tool. I can't emphasize it enough. Really easy one-stop shop for your advocacy efforts. And I see that Arohi just dropped a link for both the advocacy tracker and the advocacy center in the chat box. Just another slide on how easy it is to advocate. I won't harp on that, but like I said, just go check out our advocacy center, and also feel free to share it with folks in your communities who may not have a resource similar to it. Lastly, here's Joanna, contact information for Joanna and I, our email addresses, our Twitter handles. If you all have any questions, I know that after the last tax call, a few people followed up with me for additional information. I welcome that, so don't feel like you're bothering me at all if you have additional questions, need additional resources, and I'm sure Joanna would say the same. Feel free to email us. We are here for your questions, any support that we can provide. We're here. I don't tweet nearly as much as Joanna. I'm not nearly as much of a Twitter rock star as her, but there's our Twitter handles as well if you want to follow us. So we're here. So just let us know. And I see, thank you, Luke, for that comment on how easy it is to use our advocacy center. It definitely is. I can't emphasize it enough. Next steps, our next call in the series is going to be on our affordable home ownership priorities, which of course, as some of you all has mentioned, is a huge issue and intertwines a lot with financial security issues. That's going to be happening 2 weeks from now on February 23rd. Join us again, bring your questions, be ready to talk a little bit about what you all are working on. Similar style call. The registration link or calendar invite for that will be going out in a couple days, so join us for that. And then lastly, just an invitation to join our advocacy center once more. I can't emphasize that enough if you all are looking for an easy resource to use for your advocacy efforts. So with that, I will get ready to wrap us up. Joanna, I'm looking at you because I want to see if you have anything else, any closing words.
No, thank you guys all for sharing and engaging, and I hope this was helpful for you. It was certainly helpful for me. So thank you so much for the thoughts and ideas and feedback on these bills. Really appreciate you guys, and really excited for this next year.
Absolutely. Thank you, Joanna. And Mimi, I see your hand is still raised. I don't know if that was from earlier, but I just want to acknowledge it before we sign off here.
Yeah, no, I tried to unraise it, but I couldn't seem to get it down. So thank you, though.
No worries. Well, thanks everyone so much for joining. And like I said, you can find the recording on our website shortly after this call, later this week. So thank you, and you all have a great rest of your day.